the fairy tale of higher dimensions, having been pointed out by a good friend that perhaps the word fairy tale that I occasionally use in the titles of my posts may not be the most appropriate for my purpose, I tried to find another, but to no avail. The meaning I give it is that of the paraphrasing of the original meaning because of the many that are heard, and therefore the misunderstanding of a clearer interpretation. So let's go check the fairy tale of the higher dimensions. Initially, when we refer to dimensions, our mind justifiably goes to mathematical concepts. As far as I am concerned, there are only those that characterize the space, and they are strictly three. Fewer or more are physical mathematical concepts and should be treated as such. My goal is not to refer to them. I declare ineligible. You might ask, what makes you fit to refer to any other concept? Well, only the autopsy will reveal. The concept that troubles me is that of the dimensions that, when our time comes, I am referring to the last call, we will make our way to them. So everyone is talking about these dimensions and about the holiday travel that awaits us. The fourth dimension has its fair share, and everyone in the know rushes to sell the right tickets. But what are they actually telling us? Without being sure, I read somewhere that Jung, referring to the subject, stated that three principles are those that characterize existence, space, time, and cause. Personally, I believe we could replace the cause with the concept of consciousness. The original cause of everything, inductively reasoning from what we live, is the acquisition of expanded consciousness. For however we look at it, evolution is nothing but an expansion of consciousness. What happens to the symbiotic creature called man is that when the elements that make him up coexist, they endow him with a wider consciousness. Although this does not happen without the loss of the lowest level. We lose the consciousness of the functioning of cells. We gain the consciousness of man. Why shouldn't what we observe in man be true even further? I am referring rather veiled to the creation itself. But here I detected an error. The concepts of the subconscious and the unconscious. Is there a subconscious, and if so, for whom? Basically, what we are saying is that man has a subconscious and unconscious. And we somehow believe that there are functions in our bodies that do not have a direct awareness of what they are doing. If that was true, in any way, we simply would not exist as units. If our organs, for example, which belong to this level, were not completely conscious of what they do, then they would not function with the precision they do. Same goes for the following level of the human body's functions. If in order to breathe we needed to have a completely conscious control, we would have died. What is therefore happening? A human has many functions that are divided for their operator into those that are perceived fully consciously, others that are performed with less awareness, and others with an even lower degree of consciousness. Who is the operator? It's not the brain. This is an instrument. The operator resides in the brain and directs our being. It is the ego, not as an identity of existence, but the ego as a conscious spark of another dimension of existence, or better, of a higher level of consciousness. For the ego, then, there is a range of conscious functions. Through these, it extends control downward into the realm of semi-conscious functions. It is for the ego that this level is understood through the operation of conscious processes. It is as if the ego wears a diving suit and sinks into this space, and in order to go further down, a second diving suit is needed. Through meditative practice or concentration, it can understand the events better, but they also listen to it as it descends to their level. It is in this process that the so-called miracles happen, although it is not only from this process. Willpower, a purely spiritual process, thus becomes one of the intervention's tools on the lower conscious levels for the ego. The so-called strange also belong to this process. The ego interprets what is happening in the less conscious but highly dynamic fields in terms that it can understand. The journey of existence is a journey of expanding consciousness. Thus, when we leave this vain world, why vain I never understood, we go neither up nor down, locally, and certainly neither forward nor backward in time. We compete in the area of consciousness. There we either pass, or the scale finds us insufficient and sends us in the everlasting fire. There are no dimensions, in terms of flaws, that will welcome us in the event of a successful attempt to somehow enjoy a better view or better living conditions. So the higher dimensions become expanded levels of consciousness, which, as a term, at least to me, is closer to the truth. You see, from this journey, no one has returned, and those who claim such a thing do not have sufficient evidence to make the modern thinker accept their words. It is a game of images and emotions that can only be accepted as such. This gradation applies all the way up. In the evolutionary course, the ego is at some point likely to become a subconscious set of processes and all the following unconscious sets of an expanded form of consciousness. This path has no end. As we ascend the scale of creation, the wider consciousness we encounter, we ascend and encounter our figures of speech. Perhaps at the end of the scale, the idea of manifested divinity awaits us. If we wish to be precise, we should close this topic by admitting that this process is not an immovable process, but a becoming that occurs simultaneously throughout the entire range of creation, a perpetual consciousness cycle of becoming, now and forever. And this is the way.